Welcome, everybody, to Season 2 of Crossing the Line with Greg Heym.
We didn't get canceled.
We tried, but, we had a very long season. We actually ran, over a year. Then Lena finally said, we got to go to Season 2 at some point. So...
It's like Survivor.
We got to see who made it.
We had all those episodes, yeah.
And we kind of had a cliffhanger. I have to apologize. I got very sick in December, and
you were not doing well.
I was not.
I was also sick, by the way.
Yeah, it was wimpy sick.
It was wimpy sick. I agree. I
lost my voice, and when I lose my voice, that never happens. And the coughing was insane.
You were still talking though.
Yeah, but everybody's looking for subtitles because they couldn't. It was just some kind of virus thing that's going around. It's like a 3-week torture fest. And the best part is they can't give you anything that helps because antibiotics don't kill viruses. That's your science lesson for today. Get the flu, get COVID, get a sinus infection. Those can be treated.
I blame the kids. You have all these tourists coming into New York with their kids.
Right.
They're everywhere. They're carrying all these viruses. I say we ban... If you're 12 and under, you shouldn't come to New York during December and January. Let's get them out of here.
I think we get in trouble for that. But, my son is in high school and my wife works in an elementary school, so they could bring home anything. Mm-hmm. These kids.
I blame the kids.
Well, we should.
Gotta blame someone.
But this, if you're still trying to count from home, this is episode 49, though. And that's special because those of you watching can see Ron Guidry's 49, my favorite number. So that's special. What's also
Come on,
special,
Ron. Come on. No,
yeah, if we get Gator on the show, that's it. I'll let him host. I'll just sit and be like, hey, Ron. Today's January 6th. It's snowing, by the way, right now.
I noticed.
11 o'clock. Today would have been my dad's 87th birthday, so it's happy birthday in heaven, Dad. It's we miss you every day. I was fortunate enough to have a great dad, and I know how important that is, and to have him as long as I did. So
was he a big birthday person?
No, he never thought about himself. I wouldn't have been surprised if he would have forgot his own birthday sometimes, because he was just too busy working. We didn't see a lot of him, but when we did, he maximized it. Mm-hmm. And it's good when you have any kind of leader that leads by example, makes it that much easier. It's one thing to tell people things, but when they see you doing it, it made it a lot easier for me to know what to do. We have Scott Nadler here. I should have said that in the beginning, from CrossCountry Mortgage. So how were the holidays? Were they good?
They were great. I was in Florida.
Of course, because that's what Scott does.
A lot of New Yorkers. It's like the 6th borough over there. There were a lot of us out there. It was nice. Some
of us were home coughing nonstop.
Can you blame us, though?
No.
Like 75, 80. We had some good days.
You still look 10. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was soaking in the sun. It was nice.
It's been unbelievably cold here, too.
When I was away, we were just talking about this. It was 50 degrees here. And then I come back, and all of a sudden it drops to 25.
That's the Nadler effect.
It might be, yeah.
So we have the Nadler rule. Now we have the Nadler effect. I got to see my niece, Rachel, and her husband, Adam, came and stayed with us. They live in Buffalo now. And we always joke that Rachel's a jinx because they're world travelers. They go everywhere. And usually about a month or so after they leave a place, there's an unfortunate thing that happens there. So we will post where Rachel has been. We'll have a map so you'll know not to go to those places.
Wow.
So
is she a suspect?
No.
Okay.
No.
I want to make sure.
She would be the first one to spot something. Go, that guy doesn't look right. She's very perceptive. And we had a great time. It was nice to see them. All right. And we're coming to you, as we always do, from beautiful Studio 1873, located right outside my office and decorated by our buds at the Everset.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
And we're back. Well, with the holidays, you don't get a lot of great economic data. So we figured we'd spend this episode talking about the outlook for 2025. We already know what happened the first 5 days.
You're the economist, so I'm going to just sit back and...
No, anybody gets to jump in. Ray's going to talk about inflation in a minute, and we're all going to just take part, because we'll talk about in a minute why you shouldn't always listen to economists. So we don't have all the data in for 24 yet. We'll have to wait. That data is going to start next week. And by the way, our next week's show will be dissecting the jobs report. You're saying, Greg, I thought it was the first Friday of every month. Well, sometimes it isn't. And this month was one of those cases. But if there's a question you have about the jobs report or anything, or if you see something in the jobs report and you want us to address it, ctl@bhsusa.com. Any questions about the economy? We want to make sure that, we're answering your questions. We try to cover as much as we can, but if you have something specific you want to ask, let us know. Then we'll be ready with an answer.
We will.
In the old days, we would have had a speakerphone here and would have gotten, who knows, calling us. But so the Fed put out its economic projections at their last meeting last month. So for all of 24, they expect that the economy grow at a 2.5% pace. Pretty good. That's a little bit above the average of the last few decades. So that's excellent. The unemployment rate, 4.2%, very low. And this is the not so good part. Core PCE inflation, remember that's their preferred measure, personal consumption expenditures price index, the core version, 2.8%. Obviously, that's well above 2%. And we got our full 1% of rate cuts, right? So that is the last three things. Well, what's surprising is the GDP. Nobody thought the economy was going to grow that strong. And, the fact that core PC inflation is elevated. But when the economy grows like that, maybe that shouldn't be surprising. Scott?
We were talking about this earlier. It makes me think about the Eminem song. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Will the real economy please stand up? Because we're seeing so much conflicting data.
Right.
We're seeing strong GDP. You're seeing unemployment being very low. Jobs numbers have been good.
Right.
But then when you look under the hood, we see some data that is not
There's a lot of things, and we always talk about this every month when we dissect the jobs report. They're all part-time jobs. A lot of them are either in the government or government-supported industries, things that aren't, really telling of the actual private sector of the economy. So yeah, there's things you can dissect data in a lot of different ways, but that jobs report is pages upon pages of statistics. You can always find, more people working two jobs, longer periods of unemployment. So there's a lot to be concerned about.
The continuing jobless claims also.
Right. Initial claims, not a problem.
Correct.
Even after we had a Boeing strike, we had a couple of storms, you'd say, okay, well, it's got to be elevated at some point. No, a couple of weeks, and then it went right back to where everybody seemed to go back to work, I guess.
Right.
But like you mentioned, labor market still looks really good. Any way you slice it. I mean, we could question how strong the job growth is, but we're still adding a decent amount of jobs. The unemployment rate is low. And then, you have the GDP number, the forecast for the fourth quarter at the latest Atlanta Fed GDP now is about 2.4%, which is excellent considering. Then you have the negative side. We're talking about debt, right? Credit card debt, almost 1.2 trillion. That's a lot of money.
Credit card lenders wrote off $46 billion in credit card debt.
That's a rounding error, isn't it?
This is for seriously delinquent borrowers.
Right.
These are people that these credit card lenders don't feel have the ability to make those payments. So they're just writing it off $46 billion. That's the highest number since the financial crisis.
And auto loans very similar. We talked about this a couple months ago. The rates of delinquency are going up. So with the weight of the credit card debt, wages are still growing at a decent pace for many people. Still higher than prices, but prices are still going up, except for energy prices. Everything else is still going up. But the GDP, which 70% is based on consumer spending, they're still spending. Are you giving them the money? Where are they getting it from, Scott?
I mean, just look at how quickly things changed, right? You have COVID, rates are in the 3% range, home prices are rising, stimulus checks go out, people are spending a ton of money, the economy is very strong, and then quickly rates go up, taxes have gone up, insurance has gone up, inflation is up. So even though wage growth has increased, everything else has increased also.
Well, the
so
core things, the two most basic needs people have are food and shelter, right?
Correct.
And those are the two of the things that have gone up the most. Right. Every month in the BLS's report on the Consumer Price Index, it always reminds us that more than half of the monthly increase in inflation is housing.
Certain areas, taxes and insurance are higher than their actual mortgage payment.
As someone who lives in Nassau County, I could see that.
Yeah.
And homeowners insurance, even where I live, which is close to the water, but not in a flood zone, I've complained about this before. I had to go through 2 different insurance brokers to get insurance, let alone have time to complain about what it costs. And in areas like Florida or any place where storms are more frequent, it's become hard. Now some people are foregoing insurance.
I have a client in Florida right now who there are insurance companies that are out of Florida that just are not interested in being in that market right now. So it's making it harder, and obviously that's increasing the cost for him. So yeah, it's definitely an issue that a lot of people are feeling.
It's tough. It's tough out there, and you know, as somebody, a parent of a high school senior, college ain't cheap either.
Oh, it's not?
And forgiving all these student loans does not make college more affordable. It just emboldens universities to charge more. Because, hey, maybe all the loans will be forgiven. The government will basically be paying for school, which means we can just keep raising the prices in perpetuity.
We could do a whole episode on that.
Well, we're also going to have to do some sort of reveal when my son finally picks a college.
What are the top choices right now?
I don't want to give things away.
Oh, okay.
You know, to sort of...
What does he want to study?
He says business, I think, to make me happy.
Okay.
You know, he didn't say economics. So I think, you know... It's hard. I didn't know what I wanted to do at 17. I figured, let me go to business school. I'll find the one I like the most or hate the least, depending on how you want to look at it. And it was a process of elimination. I chose the school I went to because St. John's gave me a scholarship to play trumpet front row at college basketball games. That was like, yeah, I'll do that. I like basketball. I like playing trumpet, and I like saving money on my tuition. So, you know, Henry Ford, I think it was, used to have an expression, you can get your Model T in any color as long as it's black. I said to Gregory, you can go to any school you want as long as it starts with SUNY. You know, it's hard. Private school is so expensive. And he didn't know where he wanted to go. I didn't know where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I probably would have wound up in a SUNY school, but St. John's gave me a good deal. So as soon as I'll get a hat or something like that, because I don't want to pull him out of school to the show, unless he really wants to. But that wouldn't be very scholarly to say, yeah, you don't need to worry about high school anymore, you know, because they seem to not be as busy as they were last year.
We should bring him in and pick the 3 hats of the top schools, and he's got to put the one on.
He's got to put the one on. It's signing day. Is there a national signing day?
We'll do a national signing day on crossing the line.
So to narc on my son even more, he was taking a career management class, and we went to parent-teacher night. And she's showing me the teacher's showing us the project where they had to pick a path, like what schools were they going to go to and what career were they going to have.
Sure.
My son stole my life. He's like, oh, I want to go to St. John's and major in economics and then get an MBA from Hofstra and then become an economist with the government. And it's like, I didn't realize my life was so exciting.
You're leading by example, just like what you said earlier.
You know, yeah, I guess my career turned out okay. But when we all think about what a weird path we took and how none of it was planned and how much of it is accidental. My son makes fun of me for talking to anybody, person at the next table. You never know who's sitting at that next table. I said, plus, it's good practice because you talk to someone you know, it doesn't go well, okay, you're not going to see him again. But it helps hone your interpersonal skills and really feel more comfortable. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you in being in a referral business, it's important. You want to meet everybody.
I was with a close friend of mine and his 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter. We were on the beach in Florida, and we set up a lemonade stand. And they were selling lemonade.
How do they keep it cold?
It wasn't
on
that
the
cold.
beach.
Oh, it wasn't that great.
Okay.
Yeah, it got warm quickly. But teaching this 8-year-old kid, Max, who was adorable, he's great, no fear at all. Walking up to any stranger, walking on the beach, walking on the boardwalk, and asking them how their day is. Isn't it hot out here? Would you like some lemonade? And then initially he was selling it for $3, and then we said no price at all. Let them decide what they want to pay for it.
Okay.
Some people are paying $20, some people are paying $1, and it was a lot of fun. But you're right, like you never know who you're going to talk to, and some of these people we had long conversations with that were great, and you just never know.
No, and it is important no matter what you do to present well and be able to communicate well. Speaking of communication, so we talked about the numbers for last year. So let's look at what the Fed is predicting this year.
They're so good at forecasting.
Well, we're going to go over that in a minute. And it's funny, these forecasts are pretty close to the blue chip forecasts, which are the ones that get all the headlines. They're expecting 2.1% growth in GDP this year, not much of a reduction. Unemployment rate to tick up to 4.3%, still good. Mm-hmm. Core PC inflation down to 2.5%.
They previously said 2.2, and now they're saying 2.5.
No, and what's really scary is they don't expect it to hit 2% until 2027. Right. Yet we're cutting rates. And the rate cuts when they originally said their plan, it was going to be about 1% again this year. Now it's looking to be about half that.
Right.
So,
and we'll see if that changes.
And all this hinges on is all because of the economy outperforming expectations, inflation remaining elevated. You look at the stock market that has been going gangbusters. So it's funny though, because when we talk about inflation, remember when the Fed brought out this super core inflation? So forget all the other things. Super core, it's supposed to measure core services.
You put super in front of anything, it sounds legitimate. Well, super inflation
sounds a lot more dangerous than regular inflation.
Yeah, for sure.
So they said, all right, we're going to get rid of housing out of that too, because housing, the way we measure it could take 6 months before we get it right. Now they don't talk about it anymore. You can't even find what it is. And then you look at it and you go, yeah, because it's running even higher than core inflation.
Right.
All right, so before we talk about how good the Fed's predictions are, why don't we take a break for a message from our good buddies at CrossCountry Mortgage and their very handsome spokesperson.
Your dream home is closer than you think. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and I'm here to get you the perfect loan to match your perfect home. From first-time home buyers to seasoned homeowners, I've helped clients make their moves with confidence. Ready for a smooth, stress-free home buying experience? Let's get you moving today. Call me and let's turn those dreams into keys.
And we're back. So we were talking about Fed's predictions. So how good are they at predicting things? So I went back a year, looked at the December 23.
I'm going to predict, Greg,
okay,
that they're not that good.
Two of them were okay. One of them was almost spot on. One of them, and again, most private economists had this wrong too. So GDP, the actual number is 2.5%, we think, probably close to that. The forecast is 1.4%. This is what kind of emboldened them. One of the things that emboldened them to say, we can start cutting rates. What's the problem? We're going to have slower growth. Unemployment rate, their forecast is 4.1%. That's 0.1% different than what it most likely was. Core inflation, they were expecting 2.4% instead of 2.8%. So some things they got right, some things they got right. That's a day in the life of an economist, though. Right. If we got it right all the time, we wouldn't tell you what it was. We would just go make a lot of money on it, and then, it's like a magician not revealing his or her secrets. So, this is the conundrum, right? We want lower mortgage rates. To do that, inflation has to come down. For that to happen, the economy has to slow down. We say, be careful, don't root too hard for it.
Right.
But then there's a question of the stock market, right? If the stock market's not going to get the rate cuts they wanted, it's like promising to take a kid to Disney World, and then you got to say, sorry, Junior, we can't go. There's going to be a tantrum in there somewhere. The S&P 500 was up 23% last year, 24% the year before that. Can it keep going? Of course it could, but again, we'll see. It's going to be tough without rate cuts. The weight on the consumer. Are they going to
what's the percentage of people that are actually invested in the stock market? Because the stock market isn't always a clear indication of how good the economy is actually doing.
Well, it tells you if companies are making money or not.
Yes.
That's the big thing. I mean, you have like the NVIDIA hype and certain things like that are propped up for a variety of reasons based on the future. Remember the dot-coms. Wait a minute, why are they valued so high when they don't make any money? Because they're going to be big.
Right.
It turns out a lot of them wound up out of business. I mean, the way most people invest in the stock market is through their 401ks.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't own individual stocks, right? So I think that it's always a mood indicator. I would say like how people are feeling. It's about the future. It's never about the past. And there are reasons to be, the stock market should be excited or optimistic for this year for a variety of reasons. And remember, we have a new administration coming in 2 weeks. So, and that administration is pushing hard for tax cuts, right? The corporate and personal level, which would give people and companies more money, which would be good. You know, the government's debt is so high. We talk about it every now and then and how scary it is, but then we move on to the next thing. It's one of those things that everybody knows is looming out there, but nobody wants to deal with it because if you said, well, we're going to have to raise taxes or we're going to have to cut this and do that, you know, and we'll see what happens, what Elon and Vivek do with what they're in charge of, Doge. It's kind of a weird name because it doesn't give you the feeling of action and excitement. It's I keep thinking doze, like does it take naps all day? But tax cuts, obviously, for businesses is going to be great for stocks. And, you know, for us in the real estate business, a lot of talk about repealing the SALT cap, which does expire at the end of this year. And people say, well, then it's going to go away. Well, don't bet on it because there was a lot in that tax reform that would also expire that has been really helpful for the majority of Americans. The overwhelming majority of people now are taking the standard deduction, which is much higher because of the tax reform. And, you know, both parties had a chance to get rid of this or not do this, and they didn't because it only affects, you know, 4 or 5 states. So we'll see. You know, that was one of the issues in the leading up to the election was, you know, President-elect said that he wanted to remove the SALT cap. That was music to our ears because there weren't a lot of people in that party calling for it. So we'll see what happens. We got a whole year they have a whole year to figure it out. I want to say something about tariffs because I think this is like such a misunderstood topic. You know, the president has the bully pulpit, as they call it.
Everyone has a strong opinion about this.
I think,
one way or
but
another.
how much actual knowledge do we have of something that, well, we can't because it might or might not happen. We don't know what the amount will be.
Also, tariffs by itself is pretty broad in terms of just saying the word. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. So
no, it's true. And tariffs don't cause inflation by themselves. It may cost Ron Guidry, it may make Ron Guidry bobbleheads cost more if there's a tariff on those or crossing the line mugs. But it doesn't mean that the prices of everything go up. Right. And, you know, there's also ways that they can be mitigated if, you know, the value of the dollar goes up, then we have more purchasing power and it's not as big a deal. Or if the companies eat some of the cost, which could happen, a combination of both. Or maybe they don't happen. Maybe this is just in the beginning of a negotiation.
Also not putting tariffs on items that we don't make.
Right. Well, and people say there's going to be retaliatory tariffs. And nobody wants that kind of trade war. It's bad for everybody. So I think back to the last 2 administrations that passed and kept tariffs, and that's not what caused runaway inflation. Runaway inflation is caused by runaway money printing.
Yes.
And
supply chain issues.
Those get resolved, though, as we found out.
Yeah.
The money supply, once you increase it by 40%, it doesn't shrink by 40%. Right. So taking all that consideration, now we get to the thing that people have been waiting for patiently for 20 some odd minutes. What does all this mean for real estate? Now, real estate, it seems, is being driven. We said inventory for the longest time. Inventory, you know, was going up last year, and then rates, you know, kind of were wonky. They started to come down and kind of bottomed out at the end of September, early October, and people started buying, right? And then inventory got absorbed some of it. But it's all about rates now, isn't it? I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
And people just, even if it doesn't affect whether or not they can buy a home, they're still laser fixed on it, right? They can't let it go.
Right. There's that great Sir John Templeton quote, the time of maximum pessimism is the time to buy, and the time of maximum optimism is the time to sell. We've heard this a lot.
See, I think of a more childish way to say.
Tell me.
If you've ever seen the movie Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield's in a board meeting, and he goes, "They're all selling buy. They're all buying then sell." I always get asked, where's the best place to buy a home? Where can I get the most for my money? And I said, you go where nobody's buying.
Yeah.
Because that's where you can have the most, or where inventory is highest.
Exactly.
That's where the most negotiability is.
And this time of year also is a great time, because when you have homes that are sitting on the market for 60 days, for 90 days, for 120 days, sellers get desperate.
And they don't want to be on come spring.
Correct. And they're paying their maintenance, their insurance, their taxes. So this is an opportunity. And we work with a lot of agents and their buyers on structuring offers. And one thing you and I were talking about earlier is buy downs are back. Meaning, if someone's rate today is 7%, in a normal market, if you pay a 1% fee to lower that rate, you're lowering that rate by about 0.25%. Nowadays, you pay 1%, you could lower that rate by 75 basis points, sometimes even more. So those buy downs are aggressive. I'm mentioning that because when you are structuring an offer with a buyer and you go to a seller who's desperate, who has to sell, you could structure in a way where the seller kicks in a credit to buy down your rate. So now you're not paying today's rates. If they kick in a $20,000 credit, let's say, and that buys your rate down from 7% to 5.5% or even 5%, that buys you a 5% rate for maybe a year or 2 years until rates start to come down a little bit. So those are creative ways that agents can use elevated rates to their advantage when they're structuring deals.
Right. It's anytime you have a crisis, there's opportunity, right? And then we see, COVID presented so many challenges. Now we all worship Zoom. It's like the greatest thing ever. I never have to go to another meeting or wear pants again. Like I could just go on Zooms all day long.
I was going to say, if you could please put some pants on, that would be.
Well, we
would all appreciate that.
We have this nice studio here. We have to dress appropriately, but people are so laser focused on rates, and they haven't been moving in the right direction now for a couple of months, and they're approaching 7% again. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those benchmarks that is on people's minds.
Yep.
And again, last half century, mortgage rates have averaged about 7.8%. Mm-hmm. So still historically low. I don't care about historically low, Greg. I remember 3%. Where's that? Yep. It's gone, and it ain't coming back for a long time. Right. Again, the Fed's not going to hit their goal till 2027. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It doesn't mean that rates are going to keep going up because the Fed hasn't hit their target inflation rate. What's going to happen is any better than expected jobs reports, any higher than expected inflation reports, rates are going to go up. Reverse happens, rates can go down. Mm-hmm. Think about every bit of data you look at. Does that mean the economy is doing better or doing worse? If the answer is doing better, expect higher rates. If it's doing worse, expect lower rates. We just haven't seen enough of a slowdown in the economy to expect a significant downturn in rates. And
even that jobs report in October that showed, I think it was 12,000 jobs, right?
But that was the hurricane / Boeing. And then the next month it was like, what's the problem?
Right.
We're back. Yeah.
You would expect something like that to have an impact, but it really didn't.
So I guess the unknown is, we expect, obviously, as the spring comes on, we'll see more inventory and more options for buyers. What that means for home prices, who knows? Because in many parts of the country, prices are still rising.
Inventory is still tight.
Rental prices have been rising.
Sure.
Now I saw a forecast from Realtor.com that expects rents to dip a little bit, but not a lot. A lot of people expect that nationally home sales will tick up a little bit this year. Again, okay, you're going to beat it 24, a year that was not good at all. But it's all local. Here in New York City, it was better than last. 24 was better than 23. 23 was terrible. Mm-hmm. So it's not a lot to celebrate. And now that rates, we got a nice bump at the end of the year because of the, when you have third quarter mortgage rates going down, that leads to a good fourth quarter, and maybe there'll be some carryover into the first quarter.
Yep.
Because here things take longer to close because
Yep.
there are a lot of co-ops out there.
Absolutely.
But cash is still king, in so many segments of the market. So have you been getting calls where people saying, you know what, I'm going to take the holidays? I mean, a lot of people don't. It was very slow for contract signings in Manhattan last week. I looked at the numbers before I got in here. But are people saying, I just can't deal with this now? Or are they being at least open to hearing what you have to say?
Because of the time horizon here, they're more open to it.
Okay.
When people are buying, they're less sensitive to rates. Obviously, they care about them. They want the lowest rate possible. We also do not charge for someone refinancing, so that helps. So up front, we're having the conversation about what it takes to refinance.
Now, are you trying to give them a horizon of when you think that would happen? Or
Well,
I mean, it's a dangerous thing to say, right? But
we can't do that. But in terms of closing, most of these contracts are on or about 60 days. So meaning like really 90 days until closing. So when to lock in a rate, specifically when it comes to a co-op, is a challenge.
Right.
But we're having those conversations up front. And as I mentioned earlier, we're having those conversations about the buy downs as well. So some clients are open to, if they're not going to get a credit from a seller, they buy down themselves. And if the break-even point makes sense, it's a good option. So we're having more of those conversations. But yeah, I think as a whole, people are obviously sensitive to rates. They hear about them. They see them everywhere. They don't like the fact that we spoke a month ago that they were lower and now they're higher. So that brings up their monthly payment. That's not a fun conversation. No,
I can imagine. It's like people may get a small raise, like we were talking before, at their job, and then when they look at their bills and they look at what they're paying for everything, again, because prices for most things are still going up,
right?
And then you have to pay more for housing. It's very difficult.
We also have the conversation up front about, hey, here's today's rate, but we don't know where it's going to be this afternoon. We don't know where it's going to be tomorrow, next week, et cetera. You're closing in 90 days. We're trying to throw a dart from a mile away.
Right.
It's very difficult. So in the event rates went up 0.5%, here's what your payment would look like. If it went down, here's what so here's this range that
I know
we're
you've mentioned this
looking at
before, that you're not talking about as much money as people think, right?
It's not. It's not.
It sounds bad when the rate goes up
Correct.
%, or something like that, but on a
when
monthly
we spell
basis,
that out for them,
yeah.
it's a difference, but it's not life-changing for most people.
Right. It's tough. I mean, that being said,
by the way, if it is life-changing, probably not right for them to buy, right? If they're only comfortable buying a home if the rate's 6.5% or lower and rates go to 6.6% or 6.7%, maybe you shouldn't be buying. Or
maybe they're just trying to have some wishful thinking and kind of say, I want a 6.5. Maybe if I wish hard enough.
We're all doing that. We're trying to manifest. It's the new year.
It's funny because what we're wishing for keeps going up a little bit. Like, we're like, well, I hope we get back down under 5. It's like, all right, we'll take 5.25. 5.5 sounds really good. 6.5.
Right.
But I do think the demand is there. We know it is. We're still adding jobs. Unemployment is still low. The stock market has had 2 unbelievable years. Bonuses for 23 with $33 billion, probably be comparable again. That should keep demand for luxury homes pretty high, not just here in New York, but other areas, Florida, California. Rich people live a lot of places. They typically don't have one home, but that's a lot of cash out there that can be in the market. The election is over. People have the information that they need to make decisions. Maybe they're tired of waiting too long and not being able to get, because there still are bidding wars. There still are low inventory. But again, work with your professionals and find out, how negotiable is this market?
Right.
It's like a car. In the old days, nobody paid sticker price. I mean, COVID you did. You may have paid over MSRP. College is the same thing. Nobody pays the sticker price. Everybody gets a little something. So I think you have to look with negotiability and time it based on that. Don't try to time it based on the rate or what you think is going to happen to prices. Mm-hmm. When am I getting the most negotiability? I think we'll see more home sales this year than last year. It'd be hard, and it'd be terrible if we didn't. I think things are in place. if the SALT cap does get repealed, at some point during it, that could be a huge boost.
100%.
So it's going to be a bumpy ride, and we say that. And
also, this drives a lot of people out of the mortgage business, out of the real estate business, which is a good thing for brokers, for mortgage professionals as well. There's less competition out there. That is certainly going to happen. We saw it happen in 2023 from 2022. I think I may have spoken about this. In 2022, I think there were 183,000 mortgage brokers, and in the beginning of 2023, there were 87,000. So just about 100,000 people got out of the business. So you could see that happening as there is volatility. That's why it's important to work with a professional that's in the business that really understands what's happening in the market, that can help you navigate it. And it's always, it's that old adage also, you marry the home and you date the rate.
Right. And, make sure you can afford it. That's the key thing. Can you afford the house? Because that's what they cost, and that's what the rate is. Those are the facts, right? And there's negotiability. You see what you can get, and don't make decisions out of fear or anger. And you'll just be informed.
Yep.
There's plenty of tools out there. There's plenty of professionals to talk to, and if you feel you have all the facts, then you can go ahead. Again, I bought my house in 2006. I haven't regretted it one day since. Especially now, since lately in Nassau County, it's one of those places where inventory has become so low that prices have gone up.
Yep.
I'm not selling. At least I don't think I am. But, you can be very happy in a home. And when I bought, the rate was 6.5%, I believe, was my mortgage rate. And I was perfectly happy with it. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not so happy with the property taxes, but it's Nassau County. What are you going to do?
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
I guess that's our show. The first show of season 2. Thank you, Ray and
49.
Lena.
So we got episode 50 next week.
Yeah, Nifty 50.
Nifty 50. I like
There's
it.
a song they make elementary school students sing, Nifty 50, which is all the states in alphabetical order. And we didn't take enough time to marvel that they could remember that.
It's impressive.
There's 50 of them.
Yeah.
And no one was going like this, with their fingers trying to count. They just memorized it.
Good for them.
It's amazing what you can shove in your brain when you're young.
And when you put a song behind it.
It's a very catchy song. I'm not going to sing it, but you can Google it and look it up.
Next week on Crossing the Line.
Next week, where we have the Nifty 50 stuff. But it's, I'm starting to go through that now, like with my son getting ready to go to college. We spent a lot of time looking at old photos and stuff like that. And the wallpaper on my iPad and iPhone are pictures of him as a little kid.
Yeah.
Because now he's taller than me and he has a mullet. I want to look at that. No, he doesn't care. He says, well, you have no hair, Dad. I said, well, it wasn't intentional. It just goes. I had hair at his age, too. Let's see what you look like at 54 there, buddy. Anyhow, thank you so much for all the support, all our sponsors, the Everset, CrossCountry Mortgage, our good friends at Canaletto, providing lunch to our guests at 208 East 60th Street.
We'll be going there next week.
We'll be there next week. So if you're around on the 13th on the east side, come see the crew. You get to see what Ray and Lena look like. They'll be signing autographs. It should be a fun deal. And again, we'll have the jobs report to dissect. If you have any questions after the report comes out and you want us to address them, ctl@bhsusa.com. Any other questions about the economy that are lingering, we'll take a stab at an answer. Hey, our guess is as good as anybody else's, right? But again, we've had such good support, and we really appreciate all you who are watching or listening. Tell your friends. We try to be entertaining, and we ran a little bit over this week, but again, we haven't done this in a month. That's how badly I was sick. I hope you guys don't get this virus. It's not pleasant.
Your voice did not sound good.
It was all, I was almost had the Peter Brady, like, it's time to change voice, kind of thing. And then it almost sounded like I couldn't breathe. It was like nothing was coming out. Awful. Anyhow, but I'm better now. Don't send any cards or anything.
Ban the
Kids are okay. Yes. But again, thanks again for all the support, and we look forward to crossing the line with Scott Nadler next week. Have a great week, everybody.